And we are live with one Ask Dr. Adriana, and we are talking about allergies today. How are you, Dr. Adriana?
Hi, Vinny. Happy to be here today. Excited to talk about this topic. I don't think I've really spoken publicly on this, but I have a lot of personal experience, and it shows up in my practice a lot, actually, with clients. So I'm happy to have this conversation today about it. So where do I want to start? Let me tell you a little bit about my personal experience with what we call allergies. I became quite ill 20 some years ago with a mysterious illness that no one knew. It took them 13 years to figure out that I had Lyme disease. But one of the first symptoms that started happening is I started getting allergic to everything in my environment. I would go outside and the trees and the pollen, and then inside I became allergic to my cat and had to actually give him away, which was very sad. And I became allergic to foods of all different kinds. My whole immune system was constantly in this activated state, reacting to pretty much everyone and everything. And it hadn't been that way before, and it became like that. And then as I started seeking alternative holistic kinds of therapies, I discovered that they would change. Sometimes I would be allergic to this thing, and then sometimes I wouldn't be. And so I started asking questions about what's really going on here with all of this. I originally, tried doing the conventional route, which is allergy shots, which were awful. The very experience of getting allergy tested, they used to do the skin prick test where they would prick your back with different substances and basically see if it created, a hive or an allergic response, which is really awful and traumatic in and of itself. And then I was getting these allergy shots that actually were making me feel worse, because it turned out that I was allergic to a substance in the shot itself, like the preservative or whatever it was. How did I find this out? Well, because eventually I found my way to an acupuncturist who was also studying to become a naturopath. And she was learning all these different modalities to help people with all kinds of issues, including allergies. And that's when I first, and this would have been still maybe close to 20 years ago at this point, a technique called NAET, Nambudripad's allergy elimination technique, which was created by an acupuncturist. And basically it involved doing, gosh, I'm trying to remember now. It was like something rather complicated in that you had to avoid the substance that you were allergic to for 24 hours. And then you got a treatment that involved like stimulating, like maybe it was like tapping down the bladder and kidney meridians in your back. I can't remember if it involved needles or not. It's been so long. People can look it up. We can put a link in there, NAET. But it was difficult because I remember when we were treating me, and they would use like muscle testing, right, as a way to get applied kinesiology, as a way to get information from your body about what it was that you were allergic to. And at one point they figured out that I was allergic to B vitamins. Now, B vitamins are in everything that you eat. So for the duration of that 24 hours, the only thing I could eat that didn't have B vitamins in it was Jello and Cool Whip. And that was awful. Let me tell you what it's like to eat 24 hours of Cool Whip. It's not fun.
Not at all.
Luckily, my naturopath acupuncturist found someone who had taken NAET and developed it further, a woman named Ellen Cutler. And I actually still recommend this to folks. A woman named Dr. Ellen Cutler, she's up here in the Bay Area, I believe, chiropractor, developed a technique called Bioset. And with Bioset, instead of doing the manual muscle testing, now you were doing the testing with a machine. So it's like you either have like a probe or you're holding these like metal things, and it's assessing your body's response to different substances. And it has like all these frequencies of different substances like already programmed in a computer. So just by like pulsing like you're on your hand chakra, you can get a sense of what and then it'll give you a computer printout of what are the substances that someone is sensitive to. And then there would be times when, and then there would be times when we didn't know, and I could actually bring in a sample Like I could leave water out in my house and then bring in a sample of that water, or bring in a sample of my cat's fur or whatever it was. And then we could test to see if there was something in my environment that I was still sensitive to that wasn't in their program. And then the treatment was, the allergy elimination treatment was that you would then, they would basically imprint, they would figure out what system in your body was not jiving with the substance. So maybe it was like, this type of sugar, like high fructose corn syrup, is affecting my liver and the way that my liver is processing sugar, something like that, the sugar pathways. It's very complex. Like it goes through all the steps of like sugar metabolism and protein metabolism and breathing and this and that, and your reproductive organs. It can figure out like what part of your body is being impacted by this substance. And then the treatment is basically like sort of a homeopathic one, where you're imprinting those frequencies, because everything is energy, onto a vial. Then you've got vials of other things, and you put it all in a jar, and you basically hold that jar so it's in your energy field. And then the healer taps down your bladder and kidney meridians, which like tells your body to release its response to that substance. And you kind of then just lay there for, 10, 15 minutes, and you don't have to do the 24-hour thing. It resets your body so that it no longer responds to the allergen. And there are many techniques like this. There's, a woman named Sandy Randomsky who, I think she also might be a naturopath. She developed a thing called Allergy Antidotes, and she uses acupuncture points on the ear, and she uses like a laser to stimulate those points, and she clears allergies that way. I learned a technique from neuroemotional technique developed by Dr. Scott Walker. I actually interviewed him on the podcast early on, and I love his work. I use it a lot in my practice. He also developed a technique for clearing allergies. And here's where it really opened my eyes to what might be going on. With NET, we find there's an allergy point kind of here down on your right side on your ribs. It's an acupuncture point that tends to get, when it's activated, it tends to create these kinds of sniffly, allergic, skin rashes, hives, whatever response. And so when someone has allergies, we can muscle test, because NET uses manual muscle testing, not a computer, to notice if that allergy point is activated. And then we can take the substance, or even just think about the substance. Like imagine this is like, I don't know, not water, it's orange juice, and we're trying to figure out if I have a sensitivity to orange juice. I can hold it in my energy field, and we can muscle test. If my body doesn't like what's in here, the muscle will go weak. It's an automatic response that we can't even control. The muscle will like go weak. And if it's something that our body's okay with, we test strong. Chiropractors use this technique to figure out supplements, like, because chiropractors do holistic health, and they often have supplements, and they'll recognize, oh, your adrenals are out. Let's try these different adrenal supplements, and we'll muscle test which one your body wants. We can also muscle test for how many it wants, how often, and that's how they prescribe medication. They don't just use a rote formula like take 2 pills 3 times a day, like it might say on the label. They're actually asking your body what it would like, and they're checking the energy, because everything has an energy, including supplements, including cat fur, including fabrics. They all have an energy, and your body is reacting to those energies in different ways. So what got interesting with NET was that we check for emotional issues, right? With NET, there's this home run formula. You're checking with muscles testing to see if the issue is structural, meaning we need to do an adjustment. Nutritional, meaning there might be some supplement or a missing thing in the diet and nutrition, or if it's emotional, neuroemotional technique. So what was happening is people would show up with an activated allergy point, and they're coming in saying, I'm allergic to gluten, and maybe I'd have them bring in, they bring in a piece of bread, and you can see that it's weak. But then when you check to see if it's if there's an emotional connection, it shows up as an emotional allergy.
Mhm.
And so you go through this protocol, again, muscle testing based, where you get to what's the emotion. And what would start coming up was it's usually something from the past, and it could be something like this. Imagine you're at the dinner table and you're eating, I don't know, you're eating green beans as part of dinner. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, dad, who's a rageaholic, has a temper tantrum in the middle of dinner, gets super angry and like, throws his plate across the room. And this is like a very scary experience for you as a child witnessing this, and you're eating the green beans as you're doing this. Well, guess what happens? Your body will start to associate
Associates.
green beans with fear or terror. And those stimuli get paired together. They go into your brain, into your long-term memory. And then it's quite likely that in the future, when you eat those green beans again, your memory, your body remembers fear, panic, danger, and that triggers your allergy response. It triggers your immune system to say, danger, danger, we need to activate to protect the body. And that's when you
Mhm.
get the immune response. Or what is an immune response? It's your nose produces mucus, you might sneeze, you might get watery eyes, right? Your skin will do different things because your skin is your barrier, right? It's protecting you.
Mhm.
If your immune system is designed to protect you against danger, against pathogens, viruses, all those kinds of things. But the problem is, what I've learned is that the immune system is misfiring. It's getting the wrong signal from your brain, and it's attacking things that aren't actually dangerous.
There.
It's
Yeah.
attacking the energy you breathe in, the energy of a plant, a tree, cat fur, dog fur, and your body says, danger, danger, this is a life-threatening virus, and we need to launch this whole immune system response. And as I started working with people, I started noticing they would start talking about, I'm having a conflict with my partner or my mom or whatever, and they're starting to get these allergic type reactions. And I'm realizing, oh my God, people can be allergic to other people. Again, because
Mhm.
you're perceiving something in your brain is saying, this person is dangerous. This person is, we're in conflict, right? So it's activating your fight flight mechanism, right? And that's a more primitive part of your brain. It's like, your survival, your lizard brain, like threat, danger, this person might kill me. And now your immune system and your fight flight response are all going off, and your whole body is in this like panic. Either going to have to fight the person, run away, or play dead. And so as I was, NET is really what opened me up to it. And then I realized, okay, so it's people's point of view. It's how they're seeing the situation, consciously or not, that's then causing, because the body goes along with whatever you, the being, have as a point of view. So if you have the point of view or developed it at some point that this is dangerous, then the body responds. So with the cat, another piece of the puzzle was sometimes with my cats, and it was all the different cats I've had, sometimes when they would get too much in my space, when a cat's like wanting your attention and in your space, that's when my immune system allergic response would go off. But when I wanted to pet the cat and I wanted the cat around, I didn't have that. So I was like, wow, it was instantaneous. As soon as I was like, ugh, you're in my space, you're invading my space, get away. Right now I can feel it. The nose starts getting itchy and the cat's not even around me. He's like over there. Just thinking about that situation sets off the allergic response because I don't like people in my space. I find that very threatening. I don't like anybody being in my space. And so my body knows that and launches this immune response. So how interesting is that? And then with foods, it would just vary. It would be like different foods. Sometimes I would react to them. Sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I became aware of how the food was processed and who handled it. Because, imagine it goes through so many people's hands. It takes in that energy, right? Who handled it? Who picked the thing? Who was in the factory processing it if it got processed? Who like stacked it on the shelves? The food is absorbing energy. And I started becoming aware when I would eat meat, for example, or dairy, consume animal products, I started getting an awareness of like what that animal had been through and how it had been treated. and my body would respond differently. So, and yes, there are physiological things. I seem to have an easier time with bread, for example, from Europe, Australia, other places where it's not hybridized and genetically modified the way it is here in the United States. So there are things that my body doesn't particularly like fairly consistently. It seems to not be a super fan of cow's milk. So I just generally try not to consume those products, but I love cheese and I'm not going to deprive myself of having cheese. So I asked my body, okay, body, what would it take to have ease with this cheese? And I may run a process that those of you in Access know called DMMD, which is very interesting, where we can run hands-on energy on food, on water, whatever, and actually change the molecular structure of it so that our bodies have more ease with ingesting it. So if I know I'm going to be eating something that I'm going to override what my body wants, I can do some energetic alchemy to actually help my body have an easier time of it. So there's a lot of really interesting things we can do. I think people have the point of view that I'm allergic to this, and they come to a conclusion, and therefore I can never have this. But the thing that I see and where I think allergy testing falls short is it changes. Sometimes I'm sensitive to this and sometimes I'm not. And some things I am consistently, sensitive to. And so, and it can be crazy stuff. I mean, it can really get out there when you're looking at the source of it. Like I remember treating somebody who had an allergy to like some fabric, and it went back to some other lifetime where they were exposed to, oh God. And there was another one with poisons. There's so many interesting things, right? Where there's like a certain substance that you had a trauma with, and now you're reacting to that substance, and it can even be from another lifetime. It's just really, really fascinating stuff. But what I love is that we have techniques, and we have this tool called muscle testing, or in Access, we would say light and heavy. And we can ask questions, and we can ask the body questions, and we can get clarity around what it is that's creating this adverse response, and we can change it. And I think that's hugely empowering. And I love being able to do that work with clients. I, these days, am pretty allergy free. I mean, I have my little occasional gassiness with cow's milk, and I don't really seem to like cashmere wool up against my skin. My body doesn't seem to like that. I probably could still find a way to change that, but I haven't cared enough to. But considering I was somebody who couldn't even be outside for 5 minutes before having a debilitating allergy attack, I've come a long way. So that's my story and my awareness around allergies. I'm wondering, Vinny, if you or anybody else has a question.
Yes. First, thank you for everything that you said, because like I had a friend that like I don't think she had Lyme disease, but she had a condition that's very similar to yours. Like she was allergic to everything. Like she couldn't go outside, she couldn't take sun, she couldn't drink like even water. Sometimes it would trigger something in her. And in her case, I believe it was way more emotional, like due to how she was, like the context she was living in, like everything that was going on with her family, her parents, and everything. And that triggered like that innate allergic and panic response in her body. And personally, I would like to know, like, how are the ways that we can deal with those when we like get the awareness that it's an emotion allergy and not like a physical one? Do you have questions or any other tool?
Yeah, I mean, what is this? What do I do with it? Can I change it? How do I change it? Those are some basic questions from Access Consciousness. But I mean, I do think it starts with asking a question, like what's really going on here? In some of the modalities that I use, with NET, we actually are able to muscle test to the specific emotion. So let's say anger comes up. And then we would ask, whose anger? Is it yours or someone else's? And we kind of get down to like whose it is and what's the origin of it. And we know that which meridian is involved. So NET is based on traditional Chinese medicine, same thing as acupuncture. So you're working with the energy flow along specific meridians or pathways. And so the idea is that the energy is imbalanced in some way. Maybe it's blocked, maybe there's too much, there's not enough because of this emotion that's stuck in the body. So once we identify what that is, then we do a procedure that involves like holding that acupuncture point and doing some breathing. If I was a chiropractor doing NET, I'd also do a chiropractic adjustment on the spine. But as a mental health person, we use pulse points on the wrist, acupuncture points on the wrist. And we're basically allowing that energy to release from the body, that emotion, right? That's been stuck. With tapping, there are tons of videos. There are scripts you can even get to where you're, even though I'm having this emotional reaction, or I don't even know what it is, or I'm having this allergic reaction to blah, 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 I love and accept myself anyways. And you're tapping, and the tapping on the acupuncture points is doing the same thing. Because if you remember back to what I said about the original NAET and Bioset, they were, again, working with the meridians. They're working with how the energy is flowing in the body and clearing these imbalances that are causing the immune system to go haywire. So that's the way I tend to go. If you were going more of an access route, it's like, you could also ask some questions about what am I getting out of this? Because sometimes the person who has those sensitivities, it's their way of trying to control the environment. Like the environment doesn't feel safe. So like, I'm going to put up these walls and barriers, and then the body creates the walls and barriers with an immune response, right? So we could process with the clearing statement some of that. And there's body processes too. There are actually some specific access consciousness body processes that work with allergies. And I remember, gosh, when it came out in the advanced body class 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I remember getting that first allergy process run on my body. It was like allergic to the world, kind of a process like that. Oh, wow. It was so powerful, because I still had so much of those points of view still locked in, where I don't trust, I didn't trust the world, and I didn't feel safe, and I was doing a lot of fight. And so my body, was fighting. My body was being my warrior with its immune system. Like, yes, the world is dangerous. We will support you in launching this immune attack so that nothing will get you, to the point where my immune system burnt out. Right. So access, bars could help too, bars and body processes. So there's many, many different modalities, but I think you have to work directly with the energy.
Yes.
And it does help to have some awareness of what is creating it. What's the point of view? What was the trauma? What was the original event? What's the emotion? What's the context, of when this occurs? So notice, like, keep track. When do these, I had a hives thing. This is fairly recently. It's like, when is this happening? What's triggering it? Oh, I'm noticing the hives come up when I'm reading the news. What is it about the news? What are the energies that I'm reading and observing and sensing in the news that's contributing? It's a lot of fighting. It's a lot of conflict. It's a lot of judgment. Oh, my body's reacting to those things. What point of view do I have about that? Well, I have this point of view that I don't like those things. And I would like to, I'm here to try to change the world and eliminate some of that. So maybe subconsciously, I have a belief that it's my job to change those energies. And so my body's like, oh, it's our job. Okay, we're going to try to change those energies now. You see? So it's a process of inquiry. And sometimes, it's helpful to have a practitioner who knows stuff, has techniques, who can help guide you through this kind of process. Because it definitely isn't clear cut and straightforward. I didn't find that the Western medicine perspective of, we're going to find out what you're allergic to and then give you little doses of it until you build in it, resistance and immunity to it. I didn't find that technique worked for me. It might work for others, but it didn't work for my body.
Thank you for sharing. We have 2 questions.
Okay.
The first one comes from Riva. She's saying, thank you for this video. I had the full allergy test in Massachusetts and was allergic to nothing. Then when I moved to New Mexico, I found out I became allergic to juniper. What would it take to not have an allergy to anything ever again?
Well, what would it take? That's a good question. Start there. What's required here? What is it about, I might pock and pod myself around, what is this substance bringing up for me? I have an interesting time in the desert myself. I actually start getting an allergic reaction to the dust, and I haven't really actually processed it yet, but my sense is it has to do with the traumas, some trauma I experienced in some lifetime in the desert. So it may be that you want to look at, is there a history somewhere in some reality where juniper was dangerous to you or harmed you in some way or something along those lines? And can you clear that? Can you clear the trauma of that? Is sort of what comes to mind. But I would definitely ask more questions. And what would it take? I mean, you could also get some and put it in the presence and let your body know, hey, body, this isn't dangerous to you. We can POC and POD the point of view that this substance is dangerous and release this response that you're having to it. You could also go through one of the techniques I mentioned earlier and desensitize. We can do allergy desensitization is what it's called. And a lot of those techniques I mentioned will do that. So she could also see a practitioner who does those things.
There you go, Riva. Lots of routes for you to take. She's saying love it. Thank you. Alessandra is saying, I have this weird allergy inside my ears. And out of nowhere, my whole body started itching. And I was never allergic to anything, ever. And now I found myself taking antihistamine medications. I wonder what could that be all about? Developing allergies in adulthood. I even started having dandruff. What else is possible?
Well, the first question that pops is the literal one. Is there something you're not willing to hear? Because, right, it's happening in the ears, she says. So is there something you're not wanting to hear and your ears are like, no, 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 no. And your immune system is like, no, 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 no. I'd wonder about that. Yes, people certainly can develop allergies in adulthood. I did. And what was the other part of her question?
I even started having dandruff. What else is possible?
Well, dandruff could be fungal. Okay, so that sometimes sometimes there can be an actual infection of some sort. I mean, I had Lyme disease. I did have a bacteria, in my body. When I had dandruff, it was an overgrowth of Candida. So Candida is the yeast that normally lives in your digestive tract, right, in your gut. It can get imbalanced and out of whack. And with Candida overgrowth, you can get skin stuff. So if that's happening, that's something you can address through diet. There's a great for Candida overgrowth, and you can get tested. Typically you're going to see a naturopath for it. Western medicine is going to give you like a pill. They're going to give you a pharmaceutical pill called diflucan or nystatin. And that could help. But generally, if you're eating a diet that's like high in sugars, the sugar is what feeds the yeast and causes that. So you might need a probiotic. But the book I found most helpful for dealing with Candida issues, because it was all woven in. My Lyme disease had symptoms, and this is standard, of chronic fatigue, multiple chemical sensitivities, allergies, heavy metal toxicity, and yeast overgrowth. And they all went together. So my doctor was always like, you can't address one without addressing the others. So the resource I found very helpful for Candida, and there are supplements and things, but the Body Ecology Diet, Donna Gates. She really is an expert in this, and I highly recommend that book. If you go on her website, I think there's even a little quiz you can take that would give you some indicators that maybe there's a Candida overgrowth issue. And so I would wonder, I always want to rule out the more sort of physiological stuff first before I assume it's emotional.
Can you repeat the name of the
Body Ecology Diet, and Donna Gates is the author, and she has a website and all of that.
Awesome. I'm going to share those with them.
Thank you. And then I kind of feel like that's all I have to really share. If there are any other questions?
No, in the chat, not in the moment.
Great. Well, people can always feel free to reach out if you're watching this at a later date, feel free to comment, or you can private message me if you have questions, or you want some guidance around like how you might address a certain issue. But a lot of it, for me anyways, especially in the beginning when I didn't know what I was dealing with, it was super helpful to have a trained professional in different holistic modalities that could work with me around this. But the good news is we can change it. That's the thing I want people to know is allergies are not permanent. They are an energy-based response. And as we know, energy is malleable and changeable. So how does it get any better than that?
Awesome. Alessandra is saying thank you. She really appreciates it and she's going to look into it.
Excellent. Thank you all for tuning in. And I think too on the podcast, we may have had, we've addressed, I remember with Dr. Ann Merkel, you might want to check out her episode. I feel like we talked about allergies and gut health on that particular episode. So that might be another good one for Alessandra to check out. And I'm going to be interviewing actually next week a functional medicine doctor who maybe we're going to talk about that there too. So check out the podcast, Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, and just know there's hope. Even if you're struggling with something, it can be changed. Anything can be changed. So thanks, Vinny. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, Adriana. Bye, everybody.